What's going on, guys and girls? Welcome back to another episode on the Falcon YouTube channel. I can't believe we are on episode 10 of the Falcon Fx monthly show. It's been so fun doing this show, by the way, and I know that this has been such a big hit, so much good feedback, so we're glad you're enjoying it. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about all that kind of good stuff that we go over, the top 3 pairs, most important pairs that I personally believe that will provide the goods for the month ahead. We're going to be going over trade of the month as well, mindset tip, book chapter, all of these kind of really important things that's going to assist you moving forward. So thank you so much for the support. First up, we're going to be going over trade of the month. So there was a lot in here and lots of key lessons that I normally don't go over. So make sure you do pay attention to that because I know you're going to find tons of value in it. So let's jump straight in, starting off with trade of the month. Right guys, let's get into trade of the month. So you've got euro dollar here. I will be going over the top 3, which is euro dollar, euro yen, and CAD yen. So 2 euro pairs that I personally believe that will provide us with the goods. So first up, euro dollar, let's take a look at this. Trade of the month. Why was this trade of the month? This one slightly slipped through the net. Quite a few people capitalized on it, some of you didn't, but overall, from a structural perspective, really, really nice. So let's look higher time frame. So daily chart, we were looking for euro dollar in this area to either come down to these lows and then springboard off to the highs, or we're going to go a little bit earlier as the price action, this type of nature. This was giving us a clue for a very, very long period of time. Now we have to remember, with these type of channels, once they sell off, they only have to achieve 90% of the move, which it did, and then we started to move to the upside. But you had to be on the ball. And what I like about these type of structures, when they've got some depth like this, it gives us a very, very high probability of that playing out, especially with this sort of spacing here as well. Everything just looked pretty clean, and it was in those lower time frames that gave us that opportunity for upsides. So let's take a look. So 1 hour chart. Now, there's a fine line between trying to call something, you want to wait for some confirmation. And this is why we use that identification to be able to help us. So this one was pretty nice for this reason, that we actually had in the right areas. So we had, of course, our overall structures that we were slightly rejecting here, didn't quite make it to this one, then we did here. But this is the clue. This is why, and the tiny little tip that I want to give you, regardless of how you're trading right now, when you're looking for reversal areas, you want to see something of an ending structure. Now you'll normally find this in some sort of reversal, a descending channel, ascending channel in the areas, or you'll see things like this. So just seeing price reject and reject is not always enough. But if you've got an obvious channel, for example, like this, right, you can see we're rejecting these areas. And then in this area, you see not only do we reject, but we reject in what? An inverse head and shoulders formation. That is a clue that is a much higher probability of that turning around versus just tagging that structure, for example. Because remember, this is just a guide. This is just a guide that we're using, but the structure itself was key. So after we broke above that, and we broke above it with momentum, which is super important, we then get our first confirmation. So it's in this area that solidified that move. And what you have to also realize is that when you go back and you look at the daily, you see this. When was the last time that we had the momentum? Really, we had this leg and we had this leg. So what is price naturally going to do? It's going to gravitate back towards those areas, right? And then the fact that we have the bigger outer structure, that's how we can look at these repeatable patterns that will do that. So prices, think about it like this, price is always searching for liquidity, right? You've got buys, you've got sells, etc. You've got the big banks coming into the market that are making these impulsive moves. And our job is to identify those structures to be able to anticipate when that money's coming into the market. So you're just not caught in corrective cycles. Now, of course, you can take trades in corrective cycles. There's always strategies. However, ideally, what is the most smoothest way to trade? Impulse, 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 impulse. You want to be on these waves. So overall, that is the goal. And with this one in particular, there's quite a few trades on the way up. Many people got involved in multiple of these positions, but from a structural play, from what I've taught you on this channel before, remember how the market's moving. Impulse, correction, impulse, correction. So we're either moving in that state of continuation to the upside or to the downside, or we are forming those reversals, or we're just moving sideways essentially. But with this, very, very clear. Inverse, first confirmation, second larger, third, fourth, and we're still in that state of what? There's no reason why we can't break out to the upside. But because we're looking in this area, now in terms of percentage, by the way, like it was all different depending on the entry type that you took. You may have managed it more loosely, walked away with 7.5. Some people would have got in very tight and made more. But the reason why this was trade of the month is from all the way from the high time frame, the structure, how clean it plays out. I mean, euro dollar as a whole is naturally pretty clean to trade. But looking at the bigger structure, it was just really, really nice. And we then even formed an element of a bigger left shoulder, head, right shoulder territory to break that. And then if we just measure, which I've shown you on the channel before, on the break like that, we're sitting near those areas, which will likely supersede that, which will be very close to that high there. So it's very, very likely that we can just carry on continuing. If you look at it from a structure perspective, let's say you don't understand, you might be thinking, Mark, well, I don't actually know how to enter these kind of big continuations that you guys take at Falcon. Well, look at the structures. You might have your own strategy to be able to get in. But as of right now, you might be thinking, do we buy, do we sell? If this is still going, there's no reason why they can't break out. Again, it keeps going. Remember, we never broke the highs, right? We never broke those highs, so naturally we can gravitate back towards that. And if we do that, there's still more to come. There's still more buys to get involved in. But at the same time, you want to adopt that neutral mindset of where you don't really care. You shouldn't really care whether it's a buy or a sell, because from these areas, there is no reason whatsoever that we might be creating an ending structure in the right area. Now remember, those structures need to be in the right area, not just in a random place. But if we see an ending structure and then we start to reverse, well, we will see that momentum come into the market. And that's where you'll see the banks drop in, where you'll see that overall direction come into the market, and then we will be looking for confirmation, and then we will just sell. The goal here is not to be right, not to try to predict. It's about listening to what the market is showing us, taking a message from the market when needed. So for me, from a structural pattern play, overall higher time frame to the lower time frame, from the amount of entries on the way up, I would say this was not even trade of the month, pair of the month overall in terms of opportunity. So very well done for those of you that capitalized it. Let me know in the chat if you did take some buys on euro dollar, or you got involved, you took advantage of them. There was very many more. There's quite a lot to choose from, to be honest. But overall, structurally, the environment that we're in right now is very clean. And we are currently making some refinements and adjustments that I'm really looking forward to sharing more on that front, which will just evolve this even further. And this is what it's about. Remember, in this game, guys and girls, you have to have this almost obsessive passion, because things evolve, things change, and you need to adapt. And you have to either love the charts, like really love the charts, or just like kind of be very interested. Very interested only gets you so far. Obsession is what gets you to those levels that you want to achieve. So think about that. If you're really serious about this game, you need to be obsessed. But that is pair of the month, trade of the month. That is euro dollar. Now let's get into the top three for the month ahead. Right, let's get into the top three. So what are the main top three pairs that we're going to be focusing on for the month ahead? I want to just showcase a few things, hopefully help you out, give you a sense of direction. So again, euro dollar, euro yen, and CAD yen. There are quite a few more, but I think these will be providing us with some decent opportunities. Now, going off the back of trade of the month, what I spoke about, zoom out of the bigger picture, look at the weekly on euro dollar, look at these highs here, and look at where we're gravitating towards. You can see those weekly closes here, momentum. We're still ranging the momentum. And then you can see that we've got very identifiable structure that we're seeing here on euro dollar. So as no surprise that we're climbing. So what I'm looking for here is either continuation here. So we've got quite a few scenarios. We will either sell off in this area back to these lows and create this head and shoulders formation. This is one of those opportunities. We have to understand we don't have to make it all the way to those highs, but very much a possibility. So let's strip that back to these basics and go to the daily chart. Just zoom out here. What we might actually start to see is this formation here, right? This is what we might be seeing. Right shoulder, like so, where we're going to go slightly above, which is very close there already, right? This type of, let's get it exact. We're already above there, but it's very close. So we're likely going to see this type of formation play out. So this will be interesting from that perspective. So then when we look at this, we've got now the intersection and simplicity of this. Let's get the head and shoulders back on. So you've got left shoulder, head, right shoulder, potentially here. So look at where this all meets. not only do you have people caught on the wrong side of the market, which was here, and we come back in. Well, how did we come back in? We ask ourselves that question. Well, we came in a very corrective nature. That corrective nature creates possibilities to either rise for the higher high to take out that previous high, which would create that expanding pattern that we always talk about, or we create this head and shoulders formation, and we're right in the area to happen. So then when you dig to the lower time frames, you have to understand when to sell and whether it's relevant, because you've got to understand this structure alone can easily get to these highs and then supersede that. Because what we could be looking at is, let's say you just simply measure, this is the impulse, and we take it from the base of the pattern, right, first up. So let's take a look at this, right? So first up there, and then you take it to the top of the pattern and the break. Now let's go back to the weekly chart and then look at that previous high. Let's get that back on, and then go daily. We'll look at where we end up. We end up breaking that, getting people caught on the wrong side of the market before then a bigger sell. So I'm really curious to see what happens with these lower time frames, and you need to be on the ball because there are some decent opportunities on euro dollar coming. We're either going to start to sell off from this area here, which I would not be shocked at all from that reason of the left shoulder, head, right shoulder, or you'll just see lower time frame structures very similar to what we're seeing now, like this. This is bars pattern, by the way. So for those of you that are just coming to the channel for the very first time, bars pattern, very, very helpful tool, looking at price action. You want to use this as regular as possible. But yeah, just these type of structures, very similar as you can see. Look there, you can just see them. They're very, very similar type structures. We're still in that state right now until we get a turnaround, but there's no reason why we can't carry on like this. Just correction, correction, and keep moving higher. So we will get a message from the market. We will see a turnaround, and you'll see when this momentum comes back in, and then we've got continuation. And of course, we can get in earlier when you know how to trade that. Of course, with Falcon, you know what to do that. But let's say you're trading right now and you're looking for this as a sense of direction. Don't get too caught up into the mess or these kind of minor areas or levels that you think that are important. The most important thing that's going to happen here is we're going to either scoot back down to those lows, or we will just carry on and then start taking out these highs and then up to these areas. And then we've got the sell. So having that neutral approach, buys and sells right now in euro dollar are in really good areas. I'm really looking forward to capitalizing on this. So really happy with that. So that is number one. I think you could get some decent returns out of this for next month. Let's see how it plays out. And then we've also got euro yen. So euro yen's been on watch for us for a little bit for good reason. So we've got this. From a structural play, this pattern is enough. This pattern is enough for a sell-off. But we also have to remember, there was the more significant high that we could take out first before we get those sells. Very, very corrective by nature right now. You can see on the 4 hour as well, we've got lots of corrective structures that are replicating themselves. You can already see the inner structure, the outer structure, very similar depth in terms of the pattern, the gradients. So now with this momentum, we're essentially looking for this as a 1, 2, 3. Move to the upside, 1, 2, 3, and we will be assessing the buys in these areas, whether they're worth taking it long for the short term, and then it's the bigger sells that are more important with these structures. So I'm happy to sell here and here. Now, naturally think about it. We need to get more people caught on the wrong side before the real players step in. And you'll see that with momentum, which is why we talk about impulse correction, and we essentially identify these patterns to help us understand that. But we also have to remember, they don't always need to go to these areas. They don't always need to break the high or break the low. That's just a decent indication. What we can get is certain structures here. So we're in an area now where we will entertain it to be able to get short, but we need a few things to happen before we do that. So I am ready to take advantage of these. What would we ideally want? Well, we would just look at measuring this to pretty much the top. And then we've got from the top of the pattern there, and then from the bottom of the pattern, it would just complete this structure, which makes sense. So more and more with the momentum that we're seeing, I wouldn't be surprised if we do actually head up here. So if we can complete that kind of 1, 2, 3 formation with 1, 2, 3, we will mathematically, let's go 4 hour, mathematically, we would be breaking that high, which is perfect because that's where most people will be wiped out. And this is where you normally see things like, people are always worried about momentum. Momentum is good, right? It's a good sign. that we actually have that accumulation of that volume coming into the market. So for example, let's say you see momentum here, people are always afraid, thinking, oh, I need to wait, and they're always waiting for the slowest bit of price action. That's not always the case, which is why we have our systems in place to be able to deal with those scenarios. When there's momentum, that's a good thing. And what you often see, you see momentum break out, what happens? Momentum again, completely retrace, then you see the lower time frames, and then we capitalize. So I actually prefer that momentum. It shows the activity in the market. So if we see momentum going here, don't be fooled. Don't think that it has to now break out. You take a message. If it breaks out and then we get consolidation, well, that's confirmation that we are going higher, then we buy it. But if we completely revert that move, that is a good sign that this area is where people are getting caught in the wrong side of the market, and then we're coming down for the sell. I think based off of the structure, the edge, what we've seen, what we've tested, we are more likely to break this high and then sell off back down to these lows. So think about it in a sense of direction. We want to target that sell. Looking forward to that. Let's see how that plays out. So that's Euro Yen, and very similar on quite a few yen pairs. Pound Yen will be similar. CAD Yen's interesting from a structural play. It's almost got that Euro dollar feel to it, where you can see we've got the expanding type play. You can see we've had the momentum. This was a prime example as well. We were looking at CAD Yen here, right? If we just strip all this back, give you a quick little lesson here. This is what I'm talking about. What does that look like? Momentum. So if you look at it in the simple terms, we broke that low. You're looking for a retest to do this. Well, in certain circumstances, yes, that might be true, but you have to look at price within itself. Remember, each bit of price action is unique. So what does this unique bit of price action teach us? Well, it's not just random bits of price and there's no structure to it. There's actually clarity to it. You can see there's structure to it. So we was expecting a break of this low and a break back into the pattern. Why? Because there was structure there. That's not always going to happen. So this is why I was talking about momentum. Momentum's good. We want to see people caught on the wrong side, because that's when the real players are going to step in, which is now, right? And then we see confirmation, and then we go, which is why we're looking for buys for these short-term plays to these areas. So we're moving in that direction as we anticipated, and now it's about where do we take advantage of next. There'll be some short-term buys still to the highs, as we could be heading all the way. Let's go daily chart. If you look at the momentum we've got, there's no reason as to why this continuation can't break out to the upside, and then we start seeing these highs. So what I want to suggest to all of you is that don't be afraid of the buys right now, because we're in that momentum phase and we do have momentum to the upside. So we could easily supersede all of this and keep going. But at the same time, when you see these ending structures, you've got to look at them in their area. So we're at a massive, larger daily double top, and we're seeing this type of pattern. This can get people really caught as well, because you've got to look at the way we entered it. We entered it to the upside, so you expect continuation. But when you expand in these areas, it's often a time we see momentum here, break back in, lower time frame continuation, and then we just drop off. So either way, we're happy with, to be honest. So keep your eyes peeled for CAD Yen, as I do believe that will give an abundance of opportunity for the month ahead. Like I said, there's quite a few things. There's Pound Yen, there's Aussie Yen, there's Kiwi Yen. There's still quite a lot on watch, but I think what's really important is to look at the way the market is right now. There's confidence back in the market. Look at what we had 2020, all the things that we had to deal with. The world was in turmoil, right? So there's no wonder, think about it. The market is moving from behavioral structures and patterns. It's human emotion, it's greed, it's fear, it's hesitation, all these type of things. Now, of course, we're not going to make up the bulk of the market, right? It's when the money, the real money that actually moves the market comes in. But at the same time, these patterns and structures are happening for a reason. People have to be caught on the wrong side of the market. People respond the same way out of fear, greed, all these type of things, which creates these replicatable human behavioral patterns. That's why patterns have been in the market since day one. Only a fool would argue with that, right? So they've always been there, and it's our job to dissect that and realize, well, people often respond the same way. They behave the same way. So people are predictable, which hence is the reason why we can anticipate with an edge, not with 100% accuracy, but we can have a probabilistic edge in the market. Now, was there variable change in 2020? Yes, because things were unprecedented. So naturally, it wouldn't respond the same way as accurate, but with the confidence back in the market, with the momentum, it's just back to normal, and it's even clearer. So I'm very much looking forward to capitalizing on these, and hopefully these three Euro dollar, Euro yen, CAD yen, you find them to be very helpful for your month ahead. Right, let's dive into mindset tips. So we're going to be talking about self-awareness. This is a topic that it's been covered very many times. It's quite broad. Most people don't really understand what it actually means, or they don't understand the practicality on how you can achieve that. So self-awareness is one of the most important things that you can adopt, because remember, deception wouldn't be deception if it was obvious. We deceive ourselves, and we deceive ourselves because we lack the self-awareness. So no wonder, let's say for example, you're a trader right now, coming to this channel, you want to learn, you want to grow, you're probably thinking, right, I want to perfect my entry, I want to perfect my management, I want to do this and do that, and all these things, they're so important, but mental. Most people don't realize how important your mindset is in every single industry, and they don't work on that, and it's because they lack the self-awareness. And quite often we focus on things that we want to improve, but we lack the self-awareness to ask the question as to what's effective. It's such a simple question to ask, rather than how I approach things, and this might help you out. When I look at something new or something that I'm trying to perfect, or something I'm trying to overcome or get better at, I don't always go into, right, I want to improve this, I want to improve that. Because at this point of awareness, or in this unit of time of consciousness, I might not know the answer to that. So what I start to ask is good questions. So I have the self-awareness to say, right, I may not know all the answers. I leave my ego at the door, and then I say, right, what is the most effective thing that I could do right now that potentially could help me overcome it? Who do I need to ask that might be in a position of knowledge that is going to help me overcome whatever this hurdle is? What information do I need to acquire? And that comes from the self-awareness to not think that, firstly, you know it all. So developing that teachable mindset. Self-awareness, it comes in various forms. So you might be thinking, again, how do I trade this? How do I do it? How do you know that that's what you need to know? What if it's your mindset, which I can almost guarantee it probably is, that is holding you back? And you lack the self-awareness to realize, well, maybe you need to improve on this. Think about, why do you behave the way that you do? And I'm going to be talking about chapter of the month, which is going to kind of link to this quite nicely, which is, why do you behave the way that you do? Why do you think the way that you do? Why do you react to certain situations the way that you do? All of these things come from your childhood, right? We've got to think about the brainwave state of that you're in when you're in the most malleable 0 to 7. 0 to 7 is where you learn a lot of your things, your behavior, your characteristics, and certain situations in which that you can't control. None of us could, right? It's not your fault. You weren't in control of where you grew up or where you live, all these type of things. You know, so you have to understand that how you're programmed then, that's not your fault. But as you get older and older, yes, you have to start rewiring those good things and unwire the stuff that doesn't serve you. But you have to have the self-awareness to realize, right, so this happened in my childhood. This is how I was brought up. So this is why I have this maybe negative connotation towards money. Or this is why I've grown up in, let's say, low-income family, that you believe that you have to work hard for your money, right? So that you always think working hard, and you forget about working smart because you've associated these things with that. So that when people tell you to work smart, you have this friction because your whole life, all you've ever seen is your parents working really hard and instill those beliefs into you. Nothing wrong with that, it's just that is what it is. But as you get older, you now have the responsibility to have the self-awareness to say, right, this might be why I am the way that I am. What are the good parts and what are the parts that actually push me further away from my goals? Because not everything is bad, right? You may have learned some incredible values from your family. This is not always a negative thing. However, there'll be a lot of things in there which it's not your voice. You think it's your voice, but it's not your voice. This is just repetition of programming that you're a product of your circumstance. You're a product of who you've been surrounded by. So how you feel about money, how you feel about hard work, smart work, this will just be from your environment, and sometimes you can't control that, but now you can. So what I want you to think about going in the month ahead, I know this topic goes very deep, but this is what helps you get to where you want to be, not just in trading, but in life in general. So start thinking about, how could you become more self-aware? Well, I can give you some very, very simple exercises to do. Start actually writing these things down. Start noting these things down. Start journaling. Like most people, they don't journal. Over 95% of people do not write down their goals. So how are you going to know? Right? So if you want to be in the small percentage of people that win and succeed, start journaling, start actually writing down. So let's say, for example, you fall into a stressful situation. Start actually journal the day, start writing down what happened that day. How did you feel? How did you react to it? What did you do? Who did you talk to? Who did you reach out to? Did anyone particularly help you? And you might find that in stressful scenarios that you tend to respond exactly the same way. But if you don't journal it, don't document it, how can you ever fix it? You'll just go around in a loop and you'll do the same thing over and over again. So I would really love for all of you to be open-minded enough to say, I don't know it all. I don't know all the answers. And if I develop this teachable, coachable, open mindset, and I can go into this next month thinking about really being hyper granular with these scenarios, you'll probably find within a month's time, I mean, 7 days alone is enough, but in a month's time, you'll find these common things, and they may be the small things that is actually blocking you from getting to that next level. So that is my mindset tip for the month. I would love to know if you've had any experience and breakthroughs already with self-awareness, or any things that you practice that you find helpful that maybe you could share with the wider community. So that is it for the month ahead, and I can't wait to see how you get on. Right guys, so we're going to be going into chapter of the month, which is going to be my own book, and it's going to link nicely to the mindset tip of the month. So I'm going to grab my book here, and we're going to be going over to the affirmation section. So for those of you that have my book, perfect. For those of you that don't, I'm just going to read out a couple of bits here that I think is going to be super beneficial to that. So I spoke about self-awareness, right? Now it's about how can you get even more granular with it. So at the core, you've probably heard me talk about things like how many thoughts we have today. Average human has about 70,000 thoughts per day. So you've got to think about, if you want to practice self-awareness, right, for this mindset, if you want to practice self-awareness moving forward because you might have some blockages there that's stopping you get to that next level, well, you can journal all these things, which is good. That's a practical tip. Then you need to start to be hyper aware of the words that you choose. Because you've probably heard the quote by Henry Ford, right? Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're both usually right. See, Henry Ford famously said this, and when you really understand at the core how brilliant that is, there's so much wisdom in that. Whether you think you can, whether you think you can't, you're both usually right. Well, if you think you're going to win, you probably will. If you think you're going to lose, you probably will lose, because you've already convinced yourself. Remember, your brain is always searching for evidence of something to be true that you've already told it. So for example, if you've told yourself that trading is difficult, well then your brain's going to cherry pick those moments or bits of information that you find difficult. So you have to start rewiring your mind in a way that helps you win, and affirmations is one of the most important part. Now I don't mean just affirmations that you say and that you say out loud, say I am happy, that's not the point. I mean affirming just your daily words. It's actually not the hyper-specific words of the ones that you write out, your affirmations. I'm talking about your day-to-day language, the things that you say to yourself all day long. 70,000 thoughts per day. How many of those words are you inputting into, let's say, your supercomputer, your super subconscious? How many of those words are you putting in that actually encourage you to feel negative, down, pessimistic, feeling like you're not good enough, self-esteem is low? How many of those are happening? Well, you have to be self-aware first to record it, like I told you, and then we want to start inputting the good stuff. So I want to read something to you that I think is really important, and it's one of the quotes in here that I love, right? So listen up. Your life is manifesting exactly how you are describing it. So your life is manifesting exactly how you're describing it. Think about that for a moment. How are you describing your life right now? Right? What are you writing down? How are you thinking about your life, your thoughts? Now think about frequency, think about energy, right? Like attracts like. So if all day, every day, you have these high hopes, and hope is a dangerous word sometimes, you have these high hopes to be a successful trader, yet you've not really fully affirmed that you're going to do it. You're not really fully affirmed that you want to be successful, because your life will manifest exactly how you're describing it. So if you're describing it in a very, very dull way, for example, well then guess what? It's probably not going to happen. Remember how the subconscious works? It takes at least 10 times of repetition for something to sink in. So you might be thinking, how does that apply to me? Well, very simple. Trading. You might be learning a new strategy. You might be learning your current entry criteria, and you find, I don't know, 2, 3 examples, and you follow along with the technical analysis, and your mind says, yeah, I understand that, that makes sense. You know, logically I can rationalize that. I understand what you're saying, but yet in a live environment, you can't execute on it. And you're scratching your head thinking, why is that? Why is it that I can't execute on it? Well, you're not operating from a subconscious. You're not unconsciously competent, which means that you're not doing it like second nature. And why? Because repetition. So people lack repetition. What does repetition look like in trading? Patience. People don't have enough patience. Maybe you've just not had enough time and live experience in the market to see these scenarios play out in different scenarios, different cycles, different variations, to be able to say, right, I get it. Which is often why you'll find yourself, and I'm sure a lot of you can resonate with this. You ever find just one day, let's say you've been learning to trade, and you've been learning like a management system or an entry criteria, for example, and then just suddenly it just starts to click. You kind of knew it before, but you now realize, I get that. Now you have this next level of confidence that you didn't have before. Why is that? It's not just one day that you found this new bit of information and that suddenly now you understood it, because you understood it before. You just didn't really understand it in your subconscious, where you was doing it like it's second nature. You might start learning to drive a car and you might understand how to change gear, and someone might show you how to change gear and you say, oh, that makes sense. He's gone from first to second, third, etc. But you doing it and it going smoothly, well, that takes time and practice, yet people don't want to do that work. So just understand, if you're not getting something right now and if it's not sinking in, it may not be because you don't understand it fully. It just may be that you haven't had enough repetition for you to be able to do it flawlessly. That's it. And it's okay if you don't know how to do something flawlessly, but it's not okay to start blaming and coming up with excuses, or I don't understand it, it's too difficult. Like, you'll never win with that type of mindset. Develop a backbone, because you owe it to yourself if you really want to win in this game, and start having the self-awareness to realize that how you're programming your mind today, how you're describing your life, the way you say your words, how you think about things day to day, that frequency that you're in will be such a big determining factor as to whether you succeed or not. And the more you can really let that sink in and really think about, so I am in control of how my outer world happens. But where does it start from? It starts from the inner world. It starts from the words that because you know yourself, right? You can say all these things about how you feel confident all day long, but deep down in your mind, if you're going, yeah, but I don't feel like I can do it, like, that is in your internal, right? You have to be open and honest and self-aware enough to realize, I need to get rid of that blockage, because that is sabotaging me. That is sabotaging my success. So I really want you to get clear on that, because this is so important. Affirmations has been, as you know, such a big part. Brainwaves are important because you're the most malleable when you're 0 to 7. Like I said about the characteristics, your behavior, all these things that you pick up. So if you think about it, you want to take advantage of that. But we can't go back in time. So it would be nice to, but we can't go back in time. So what is the next best thing? When you wake up in the morning and before you're kind of drifting off to sleep, your mind is going through different waves, right? We're going into that more alpha state of brainwaves. And for those of you that understand brainwaves, or you don't, go and research it. Super fascinating stuff. We've got quite a lot of stuff on psychology coming in the Rewired program on that goes deep and deep into that. But just think about it at its core, at its simple. When you wake up in the morning and before you go to sleep, when you're drifting off to sleep, you're more in this kind of alpha brainwave state, this dreamy state. And what happens is that's where you're going to absorb as much. You're not really as conscious as what you'd like to be. So you're absorbing all these things, which is why if you ever taken an exam before and then the night before, if you've read something or done something, you either dream about it, or when you wake up in the morning, you actually think about it and you've absorbed all that knowledge. Why? It's because you was absorbing that. Now, there's a key window. It's called the window of opportunity that I want you to focus on. 15 minutes before you go to sleep, roughly, and 15 minutes when you wake up, which is why people talk about, well, the science behind when you wake up, don't check your phone, don't check Instagram. There's a reason for that, because you've essentially, let's say you see something negative, you've just set yourself up for failure, because the first thing that you've seen is that where you're going to absorb the most. So your mood is dictated by how you woke up. If you change your morning and you change your evening, you will change your whole day. So what I want you to think about with this rule, just for 5 minutes, it doesn't have to be 15, right? When you wake up in the morning for 5 minutes, I want you to practice something. I want you to practice gratitude. I want you to start reading over your goals. I want you to start reading over some quotes that you find inspiring, that you connect to. Maybe read your favorite chapter of a book, a passage, listen to an audiobook. First 5 minutes, I want you to design, what does the first 5 minutes of your day look like? And the last 5 minutes of your day. So before you go to sleep, what are you going to do? Now, what I would recommend in the evening before you go to sleep is just to grab your journal where you've written out your goals. Now, I'm assuming that you're serious about your life, so you do write out your goals, right? You take it serious. So I want you to grab your journal and actually read through what are these goals that I've set for myself for the year, or for the next 3 months, or for the next 6 or 5 years, whatever it may be. And I want you to just read what you wrote with your own words, what you want to achieve. Now, the repetition of this every single day, you're giving yourself the advantage to absorb more. So why wouldn't you want to do one thing? Affirm the goals that you want to achieve in the first place. So the more you don't do that, think of it like this. Let's say 5 minutes and 5 minutes, that's 10 minutes. In total, you have technically 15 and 15, so 30 minutes, but you're missing out. Every day that goes by that you don't do this, you're missing out on potentially 30 minutes every day of absorbing what you need to, that's going to help you achieve success. What is that times 365? Over 150 hours, 170, 180 hours. You're talking hundreds of hours here that you're missing out on, that you could absorb the very thing that you want to achieve that's going to help you achieve success. It's almost like such a waste. Such a waste. When I started to understand these concepts, I started to change my habits, the way that I think, the self-awareness, and I realized first thing in the morning, what do I want to do? I want to start practicing gratitude, because when you start practicing gratitude first thing in the morning, it gives you perspective. The problems that you think are big problems, they wither away, because you realize there's a much bigger picture. I've got so much more to be grateful for here. And then before you go to sleep, then looking over your goals, you're like, what am I going to achieve here? Remember the mood that you set those goals in. What are you actually going to achieve here? And that is a very powerful thought with repetition. So I would love that. As a little bonus tip, please try that. I know that you will find tremendous value from it. Come back to this video and comment and let me know. This is the type of, I wasn't actually planning to go into this part of it, but I would love for you to share this video. Make sure that you do like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you really enjoy these type of topics and you want to hear more of them as well. And share these kind of videos with your friends, because sometimes people need a bit of a prompt like this, and this could be the difference that's holding them back. So I would love you to share that, and we can really push this message, because it's so important. I'm so passionate about it, because on a practical level, I firmly believe that you can change your life one day at a time, but you need to understand fundamentally what that means. So it's the words, the thoughts that you have, your daily goals, they compound. Success is very simple. So this is what I mean. It's not some wishy-washy thing. It's about, you can really change your life day by day, but you have to be self-aware enough to be conscious to make those decisions that actually matter. Do what makes the difference. Guys and girls, I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you took tons of value away from it, and you're looking forward to moving forward to next month to take advantage of those pairs, take advantage of all the lessons that I went over technically as well, but more so mindset as well. Guys and girls, thank you so much. And for those of you that have already picked up a copy of a book, I really do appreciate the feedback on that. It's been phenomenal, by the way. I can't believe that it literally got bestseller within like 24 hours. That was crazy. That was a big goal of mine. And again, just going back to affirming, I was affirming that every single day. Leading up to this for months and months and months, I was literally visualizing and affirming that I am a #1 bestseller. Pure coincidence, it happened. See, this stuff, it's not just some wishy-washy thing. When you start to affirm good stuff, miraculously, the universe moves out your way and good things start to happen. It's not the law of attraction, you sitting there and it just comes to you. You have to take actionable steps, but don't underestimate the power of the thought. Have an incredible day, morning, wherever you are in the world, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, guys and girls.